So we're going to use, that's okay. It's no big deal. We'll sort that out later. Who knew that if you move locations and you have all the same gear, it sometimes doesn't work? So we're going to use Microsoft Word, okay? And we're going to use this to kind of take some notes, all right? We're just going to roll with it. Okay, so first thing to understand about procrastination is okay. So today we're going to talk about, so you guys should take notes yourselves, okay? We're going to talk about procrastination. We talked a little bit about this last time, that so one of the things we talked about in terms of motivation is that if it's like ever present, or anxiety, if it's present within most human beings, that generally speaking, it's actually not a problem. So it's not like a pathology. So what I mean by that is, like, if we think about like pathology within human beings is rare. So if we take something like cancer or schizophrenia, those are rare conditions that like literally mess with sort of the way that we work. We're not designed to work that way. Whereas if you look at something like procrastination, like how common is procrastination, right? Like it's a universal experience that is by all people. So it's not something that's a problem. It's actually, it's a solution. It's not a problem. I know that sounds absolutely bizarre, but what do I mean by that? So if we think about like, what is procrastination? Like, how do you guys define procrastination? Let's start there. So procrastination is waiting until the last minute to get things done. And so I want you guys to think about this for a second, right? So the first thing is procrastination is different from not doing it. Procrastination is different from failing. Procrastination is waiting until the last minute to get things done. So what we need to understand about procrastination, it is actually a strategy for getting things done. And furthermore, it is a strategy to get things done in the most efficient way possible. And this is why it's so hard to get rid of, because it's not a problem. It's actually a very efficient solution. So our brain tends to be incredibly, incredibly efficient. This is why when we want a glass of water, we go to like our kitchen and we grab a glass of water, or we bring water with us when we come to our bedroom or our room to study or things like that. We don't walk 2 miles every time we want a glass of water. Why is that? It's because that's inefficient and our brain is incredibly efficient. And so I'm going to walk you guys through a scenario, okay? So I want you guys to think about this for a second. Like when you have like, you have tests, right? Like, so let's say that you have a final paper that's due in the class, and your entire grade is based on that final paper. You have 3 months to work on that paper. When do you start working on it? Like when you have 2 weeks left, right? And so like what you want to do is you kind of think like, okay, at the start of the semester, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to work on this paper every week, and then I'm not going to be stressed out at the end of the semester. So 3 months later, I'll have it all like done, and I'll like polish it. I'm actually going to turn in 2 weeks early. Like I'm going to just get it done, and then I'm going to relax the last 2 weeks. And then it's going to be amazing. I'm going to get an A. Everything's going to be great. And then like, I want you guys to think about that. So your brain is like, okay, buddy, like, let me understand this. What you're saying is that we're going to spend 3 months working on something that we can finish in 3 days. Like, why on earth would we do that? Like, you're dumb, man. Like, you're telling me that you want to work your ass off for 10 weeks and then do this paper in 2 weeks. Or sorry, you're telling me that you want to work your ass off for 10 weeks and then we're going to relax for 2 weeks when you turn it in early. Or we could actually just relax for 10 weeks and then like work our asses off for 2 weeks and then be done with it. Like, think about that for a second, right? So the reason that procrastination is so resistant to the reason we're so resistant to getting rid of procrastination is because it's a really, really effective solution. Think about all of the time and pleasure and enjoyment you buy yourself by procrastinating. Like, sure, like you stress yourself out for those last 2 weeks or 3 days or whatever. There are all kinds of like, emotions that are floating beneath the surface. But like, think about all of the YouTube you get to watch or all of the games that you get to play by procrastinating. And then your brain is like, dude, I don't understand why you want us to suffer for 10 weeks doing boring stuff that we don't want to do when we can do it in like somewhere between 3 days and 2 weeks instead. It's just dumb. It's silly. So the first thing to understand is that procrastination is not a problem. It is a solution. And it is an incredibly effective solution, which is why it's so prevalent. So the things that work well tend to spread evolutionarily, right? So like eyes tend to work pretty well. Furthermore, two eyes tend to work better than one eye because it gives us depth perception. And lo and behold, most people in the world have two eyes. It's because it's so effective. So procrastination is actually a highly efficient task completing strategy. And if you guys don't think it's efficient, just think about this for a second. If you can write a paper in 3 days and one semester, like let's say you take a class and you have to take like, let's say 5 classes a semester, and you do 8 semesters over the course of college, that means you're taking 40 classes, right? If you can write one paper in 3 days, what that means is that if you wanted to, you could be done with college in 120 days. Think about that. You could do all the work in 120 days, done, start to finish. Because if one day you can write a paper, if one class you can write a paper in 3 days, and then your brain is like, this is actually only 120 days of work. I don't need to spend 4 years, which is 1,200 or even more than that, right? It's like 1,500 days. Why would I spend 1,500 days doing work that you can finish in 120 days? Your brain is like, we only need 10% of the time that you're trying to do this in. Like, that's all we need. Think about that for a second. So the first thing to understand about procrastination is that it's an incredibly efficient task completing solution. Okay? Now the question is like, but then why does it cause us so much trouble? And that's because we have goals set in our mind. We have fantasies about our performance that our brain is not like, doesn't get behind us with that. Okay. So like what I mean by that is like, if you write a paper in 3 days, you're going to get like a B or a C, but what you want is an A. But like what the brain has trouble getting behind this idea that like, okay, I could spend 10% of the work. I could spend 10% of effort and get a B, or I could spend 100% effort and get an A. Your brain is like, that seems like kind of a bad deal to me. Like, why would I want to spend 1,500 days getting an A when I could spend 120 days getting a B or a C? Brain's like, that's dumb, dude. We can get a degree with like a straight like 2.8 average or like 3.0 average, and we could just work 10% of the time, right? So that's the first thing. So the second thing is that when it comes to actual, so that's the first thing to understand about procrastination. Now, even if it's a solution, there are different kinds of things that happen with procrastination that like cause, so even if we say it's a solution, we still want to change that solution, right? We don't want to accept that solution. So in the process of changing and overcoming procrastination, we need to understand like how to change it, even though it is a very efficient solution. And the reason that there are, thousands of like videos on procrastination and tons of books and tons of blogs on procrastination is that like one solution doesn't work, because I don't think procrastination is one problem. I think it's like half a dozen problems. So I want you guys to think about this for a second. So let's say I'm a doctor and someone comes to me and they say, I have an illness. And then I say, okay, you have an illness. Let me give you medicine for your illness. And then someone else comes in and says, oh, I'm sick. And then I say, okay, you're sick. Let me give you medicine for your sickness. And there's no specificity of diagnosis. So whether someone comes in with a heart attack or depression or an allergic reaction or erectile dysfunction, my treatment is all the same. Like, how good of a doctor do you think I'm going to be? I'm going to be a bad doctor, right? And what's the problem here is that we're taking something like sickness and we're not breaking it into its component parts, which are actually different and have different solutions. So the next thing to understand about procrastination is that there are actually multiple kinds of procrastination. And that's why it's so hard to get rid of. Because until you understand what kind of procrastination, what type of procrastination you're dealing with, there are different strategies for different kinds of procrastination, which is why you can read a procrastination blog which says, here are 5 tips to overcome procrastination. It doesn't help you at all. So let's start by understanding there are 3 different, so today we're going to cover 3 different kinds of procrastination. Those are idealistic procrastination, consequence procrastination, and operational procrastination. So the first one is idealistic procrastination. And this is when our brain creates a particular fantasy about what we want, and our inability to get that fantasy keeps us from trying. So this is the procrastination of what I call readiness. So this is also readiness procrastination. This is the procrastination that I will do this task when I'm ready to do it, right? Like, so I'll give you guys a prime example. Before I started doing the webinar, the reason that I hadn't done the webinar is because in my mind, I wanted to improve my handwriting before I did the webinar. I was like, I'm going to practice my handwriting for like 1 or 2 months or 3 months and learn how to write legibly again, because I'm a doctor and all of our handwriting sucks. And once I'm ready to like write legibly, then I'll start the webinar. And so I don't know if you guys like realize that. Can you take notes in your Word? Yeah, I have notes in Word. So do you guys really want notes? Hold on. Okay, sure. I can type this. Okay, so the first thing, point number 1. Procrastination. Let me just make sure this is a solution problem. Procrastination is waiting until the last minute to complete a task. Procrastination is an incredibly efficient task completion strategy. So the key thing here is that procrastination is not about quality, it's about value or efficiency. And remember, value equals yield divided by effort. Okay, so that's the first thing. So the second thing is procrastination. It's hard to fix because there are subtypes, and so we frequently misdiagnose our procrastination so that we end up treating it incorrectly. Okay, that's the second thing. So there are 3 types. So what are the subtypes of procrastination? Number 1, idealistic procrastination. Number 2, avoidance procrastination. And number 3 is operational procrastination. And each of these has a different thing going on in your mind, and as a result has a different solution. So what is idealistic procrastination? So the first thing is idealistic procrastination is about a fantasy. Okay? So what that means is that you think like, I want this task to turn out a certain way. I want this task to ... And until your brain figures out how to make that possible, you're not going to do it. So this is also a procrastination of readiness. So what I mean by that is like, I'm going to do this task when I'm ready to make it perfect. And so think about all of the things in life that you avoid doing because you're not ready to make them perfect yet. So the example that I use for this webinar is like, I wanted to improve my handwriting before I started doing the webinar, because then like my notes would be nice and clean and things like that. And since like, I'm not going to improve my handwriting, like I'm not going to do the webinar. So in this case, like there was an interesting pressure from COVID and all this kind of stuff that we decided, okay, let's do our mental health boot camp. Let's just do it. Even if we're going to do a bad job, let's just try it and see what happens. And so your attachment to the fantasy prevents you from moving forward. So I'm going to ask that there's this girl I like, I'm going to ask her out, but she's going to say no because I'm out of shape. So let me get in shape first, and then I'm going to ask her out. You guys with me? Like this is an idealistic procrastination. Right? And so, so what this means is that like, if you want a 4.0, like you're not going to, this leads to all kinds of weird things. Like, let's say you wait halfway through the semester and you procrastinate and you want like a 4.0 that semester. And then you realize that you're not going to get a 4.0 because you procrastinated so much. And then instead of like shooting for the 3.0, since you can't have the 4.0, it sort of like causes you to lose any desire to do work, and then you end up with a 2.0. It's this really weird, convoluted mental gymnastics kind of thing, but you're so attached to a particular fantasy or ideal that you're not willing to like do something less than the ideal. So it's sort of like this attachment to an idealistic outcome, and the difficulty of obtaining that idealistic outcome, and we'll kind of get to that in a second, that has to do with operational procrastination, prevents you from actually acting. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah, you'd not even take the test. Absolutely, right? So you'd rather have a 100% chance at an F than a 20% chance at an A. So just think about that. Like, that's crazy. You'd rather take a 100% chance of an F rather than a 20% chance at an A. Just think about that. That's completely messed up. Like, it's bizarre. But it's so true, right? So let's remember that the goal of like our boot camp here is we don't care about whether things are smart or dumb, or we don't care about whether we're idiotic or our brain is stupid. We care about what is. So we're not going to judge that. We're going to just accept that this is the way that we're wired. And if this is the way that we're wired, we can hem and haw and we can get upset about it. Or we can just say like, okay, let's scratch our heads a little bit and see if this is the way that we're wired. Like, let's see if we can just fix it. Let's see if we can start from where we are and move forward. So if we think about this, we'll get to, okay, let's get to solutions, right? So how do you deal with idealistic procrastination? So idealistic procrastination, if we're thinking about solutions, the first thing is to recognize that what you're chasing is a fantasy. The solutions. So what you need to do is learn how to step away from your fantasy or idealization, right? Recognize that, like, okay, the problem is that you set a target for yourself, which is unrealistic. So if you've never gotten a 4.0, if you have a 2.0 GPA, and you start your second semester and you're like, this semester, I want a 4.0. Like, this semester, I'm going to do it. You start by actually letting go of that, right? You start by saying, hey, buddy, it's like very, very, very unlikely, probably impossible for me to go to from a 2.0 to a 4.0, right? So recognize you're chasing a fantasy. And then, this is the tricky part, then grieve your loss. Okay, so the solution to idealistic procrastination is grief. This is what you guys need to learn how to do. Because your attachment to the 4.0 is what keeps you stuck. If you can grieve and you can say, like, okay, that 4.0 is never going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm just not capable. I'm not that smart. I'm not that capable. I'm too lazy. I'm too undisciplined. Let me grieve that loss and let me set a more realistic expectation. Like, what are you actually, and say like, and then aim low, right? So say like, okay, let's shoot for a 2.1 this semester. This is the cognitive process that you need to do. Like, just grieve it and just let it go. It'd be like, okay, well, that's it. Screwed. Let's shoot for a 2.1. And the cool thing about that, doesn't grieving sound like giving up? On the contrary, grieving is not giving up. Grieving is actually accepting a loss and moving forward, right? Like, if we think about grief, like when a loved one passes away, the process of grieving is accepting their loss and then moving forward. Giving up is completely different. No, you guys are that smart. All of these problems are worse for people that are smart, easier for people that are less smart, because your brain is working against you. This is what you guys have to understand. The smarter you are, the stronger your brain is, and the harder it is to overcome problems like procrastination. You guys get that? Anyway. So the solution to idealistic procrastination is grieving your loss or letting go of your fantasy. And we'll kind of get to this in a second. But so I want you guys to think about this. As long as you have an unrealistic fantasy, you're never going to be able to move forward, right? If you have a 2.0 and you don't have the study skills or the habits or environment or intelligence to get a 4.0, if you attach yourself to that 4.0, you're never going to be able to study because like you're never going to be able to get there. You're shooting for something that is like impossible, and therefore all it's going to lead to is like disappointment and a lack of confidence. Instead, what you need to do is let go of that fantasy and say, hey, I'm just like, I've gotten a 2.0 for 4 semesters in a row. Let me see if I can at least get a 2.5. And once you have an attainable goal, because this fantasy is for the most part unattainable. You're setting yourself up for failure here. I want you guys to really think about this. You're setting yourself up for an equation that you're like bound to fail. And so like, no wonder you're stuck in life because you're playing a game that you literally cannot win. And you hope you win, and that's what the fantasy is. The more you start to fail, the bigger the fantasy becomes, and the harder it becomes to achieve, and the more stuck you get. Like this explains why people are stuck. Because you're not willing to let go of your fantasy of progress. And if you can't let go of your fantasy of your progress, you can't actually progress. And here's the thing. When you actually let go of your fantasy, cool things happen. Instead of a 2.1, you actually get a 2.7. And then you're like, okay, I got a 2.7. Let me shoot for a 2.8. And then you get 3.0. And then you get 3.5. So if you guys talk to people who like put their lives together, it's not an overnight thing, right? It's not an overnight thing. It's a gradual process. How do you let go? You grieve. So we'll talk more about that. But you accept, right? So you tell yourself, like, you're going to have a thought that I can get a 4.0, and then you now need to have another thought that says, hey, buddy, that's realistic. Let's shoot for a 2.1. You have that thought along with your thought. So we can talk more about how to grieve, but I want to go through a couple of other types of procrastination, right? Okay. So the second thing is avoidance procrastination. So this procrastination tends to be based on emotions. So what I mean by this is that if you think about a particular task, like let's say that you want to ask your boss for vacation. Like you want to go on vacation, but you're afraid that your boss is going to say no, or you're afraid that your boss is going to think you're lazy, or you're asking, this is an example I was dealing with recently, you're asking your professor for an extension due to COVID. And you're afraid that like your professor is going to think you're dumb because you need an extension. And so there are all kinds of like emotions, and you're trying to avoid that emotional impact, right? You're trying to avoid the emotion of people thinking, or ego. You're trying to avoid the emotion of like, you know, oh, I'm afraid that my professor's going to think I'm dumb. I'm afraid that this is not going to go well. It's fundamentally, it's an emotional procrastination. So this is different from the fantasy. Do you guys get that? Like fantasy is like you having an ideal in your mind of what you can accomplish if everything goes right. Man, during COVID, I can't leave the house, so I'm going to learn 5 languages and I'm going to get into shape and I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. every day. That's fantasy. And the bigger your fantasy becomes, the more you're going to procrastinate. That's fundamentally different from having an emotional barrier that holds you back. So emotions that you try to avoid. And this too is protective. Because your brain is now like, hey man, like, oh, until we ask our boss, we're not going to have to feel bad. Because our boss is going to call us an idiot. He's going to call us lazy, and he's going to say no. And then I'm going to have to call my friends, and then I'm going to have to tell them I can't come. And they're going to be disappointed. So that sounds terrible. How about we don't do that? So your brain is like, how about we don't do that? Right? You guys see this? Your brain's trying to help you out. Your brain's like, hey man, if this is going to be bad for you, how about we don't do that? How about we avoid the fear? Right? But these are fundamentally different because the solution is different. You can sort of let go. I mean, letting go works really well. So the solution to this is going to drive me nuts. The solution to this is first to recognize the emotion Actually, hold on 1 second. So one other thing. Okay, so one other thing that I want to point out here. So the other thing with avoidance procrastination is a lot of times we try to rationally justify what we should do. So we try to tell ourselves, oh, like it's no big deal. Like everyone's going to ask for extensions. COVID is going on. Like what kind of professor is going to say no to anything during COVID? Like who's going to do that? No one's going to do that. Like, so we have all these rational arguments. Or other people, like if we turn to friends or family members and we tell them, oh, hey, I'm having trouble like doing this task. They're like, hey, man, just do it. They're not going to say anything wrong. Like it's going to be fine. We try to rationally justify what we should do. And how effective is that when we do rational justification? Okay. How rational is it? Or how effective is it? Truth is, it isn't effective, right? And the reason for that is because we're trying to use thoughts to deal with emotions. And thoughts don't really work well at dealing with emotions because it's kind of like apples and oranges. It's kind of like you're trying to build something with a pen, right? A pen is used for drawing. It's not used for building. It's just they don't connect. So our solution is to recognize the emotion. So ask yourself, what is the emotion I am feeling or trying to avoid feeling? Okay. And if you guys are having trouble with that, another question you can ask yourself is, what is the consequence? If you can't pin down the emotion, I'm trying to avoid. Okay. And then ask yourself another question. How would someone who is in that situation feel? So this is a really quick cheat code to figure out what your emotions are. So a lot of people have trouble answering this question. They don't know what their emotions are. So maybe we'll talk about alexithymia tomorrow. And so one thing that a lot of times, like people who are technology savvy or gamers are, they don't really have a whole lot of emotional empathy, but they have good cognitive empathy. And what does that mean? It means that if you ask them to analyze a situation and use reasoning to figure out what emotion someone is feeling, they're really good at that. But if you ask them, what are you feeling? They're like, I don't know. They're emotionally colorblind, but their analytical capability to reason emotion is very good. So this is a way of transforming inability to determine your emotions. This is leveraging your analytical capability to figure out your emotions. So it's kind of like a little bit of a cheat code. Someone was asking, is there some way to productively use this? Absolutely. It's all productive. And so if you have avoidance procrastination, the first thing is that you can't rationally fight against it, but that's usually what we do. So stop. Don't even try to rationally fight it. Start with the emotion. Ask yourself, what is the emotion I'm feeling? And then you're going to be like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I feel bad. And these are the answers you're going to come up with. Bad. Lazy. Stupid. These are not emotions, guys. They're not emotions. Stupid is not an emotion, right? But these are the only words that we can come up with because we don't understand we're emotionally colorblind. So do this practice and then recognize, oh, okay. So this is the negative emotion that I'm feeling. And then what you have to do is work on an emotional level, right? So how do you come, and then you're like, okay, well, let's play through this dialogue. So then what we have to do is work on emotional level, okay, instead of a rational level. And then y'all's response is, how the F do I do that? Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys, let's use our cognitive empathy. Let's turn cognitive empathy into emotional empathy again. So ask yourself, if I had a friend who felt X emotion, what would I say to them? Right? And then say that to yourself. You guys get this? So this is going to be kind of weird, but a lot of times, like when you have friends who are like, oh, I'm afraid that she's going to say no, what you want to say is like, you don't want to say, you don't want to say, just fucking do it. You're a retard. Just do it. Like that's what you tell yourself, right? Like you're lazy, you're incompetent. But the way that you talk to yourself and the way that you talk to your friends is different. So learn how to be supportive towards yourself. Instead of being a judge for yourself, learn to be a coach. And what's the difference between a judge and a coach? A coach is not someone who says, oh, everything is wonderful, you're amazing. A coach still acknowledges your flaws, but then like encourages you to work on them instead of a judge who's punishing you. A judge is like, you're lazy. Smacks his gavel. You deserve to go to jail. You don't deserve to play video games. You suck at life. Screw you. Jail with you. And the coach is like, hey, buddy, I understand that you have trouble dribbling. Let's practice dribbling. And like if we work at it, you'll actually like get better. Like I believe in you. So you need to start to like, instead of an angel and a demon on our shoulders, our generation has a judge and a coach. Those are the two things that you have on your shoulders. And you still, the coach isn't going to let you slide. He's just going to be a little bit more encouraging, right? And learn how to say this to yourself. This is a task too. This is also the subject of an entire video or day about like how to deal with emotions and how to talk to yourself. Okay, but remember the main thing I'm asking you guys to really focus on right now is that there are 3 kinds of procrastination, and understand which one you're dealing with. Because do you guys get that like dealing with this one is fundamentally different from dealing with this one? 2 of them can coexist, but then you have to deal with each one, right? Like someone can come in with like a cough and a fever, and then you want to give them something for their cough and you want to give them something for their fever. But that's the way that you become an effective doctor, is you deal with like each part of the problem in and of itself. And this is why procrastination is so hard to deal with, because we use one word for procrastination, but in fact, it is actually a lot of different psychological like patterns that are all coexisting. And that's why it's so persistent and so hard to fix. You guys get this for a second, that if we had a solution to procrastination, there wouldn't be 1,000 solutions for it, because one thing would work. And then like all of the self-help books about procrastination would be useless, because there'd be one book about procrastination that worked for everyone. So the fact that you have all these thousands of solutions means that like none of them work. And that's because it's a complex problem. There shouldn't be one word procrastination. It should be a dozen different books about a dozen different kinds of procrastination. So now let's go to the last one, which is operational procrastination. So this is operational procrastination is our brain's difficulty engaging in unclear tasks. Okay? So what I mean by that is if our brain, so this is this kind of procrastination. I'll tell it to you guys very quickly, okay? Have you guys ever procrastinated to do a task for the first time, and then when you do the task, you're like, oh, that actually I should have done that way earlier. It was actually really easy. Does that ever happen to you? Like this is the procrastination that you experience when after you're done, you tell yourself, oh, that actually wasn't that bad. I should have done it weeks ago. A great example of this. You guys are doing yoga with us. You're like, damn, yoga's not that hard. I could have done that weeks ago. I could have done that weeks ago. I should have done that weeks ago. This is operational procrastination. So now I want you guys to think about this. This kind of procrastination, right? You guys can't see me pointing, is different from this procrastination. Do you guys get that? Do you guys get that avoidance procrastination, idealistic procrastination, and operational procrastination create different thoughts in your head? So like these are different things that are going on in your mind. And so they have different solutions. And if you guys actually start tailoring your solutions to what is going on in your head, instead of having a solution to procrastination, it's going to be like night and day. So what is operational procrastination? Okay. And how do we fix it? Okay. So this is how to recognize it, first of all. All right. This is how to diagnose it. This is the diagnostic question. This is the diagnostic question. And then this is the diagnostic question. So if your mind is doing this, then you're dealing with fantasy procrastination. If your mind is like avoiding negative emotion, if your mind is telling you this, actually, this is the diagnostic question. If this is what your mind is telling you, it's a different procrastination. and this is kind of tricky, but because this is after the fact. If this feels like you would say this after the fact, then it's operational procrastination. Okay. So what do we do? What is operational procrastination? So the first thing is that when we tell our brain to do abstract tasks, our brain has difficulty like executing the abstract. And this is a big problem for video gamers, okay? So abstract tasks are difficult or impossible to execute. I'll give you guys an example of this, okay? So let's say that I tell my 4-year-old, she's like almost 4.5 or 4.5-year-old. So she's like 4.5, and I tell her to clean her room. She goes into a room and she can kind of clean it, right? If I tell my 2.5-year-old, go clean your room, she goes into the room and she stands there and she can't clean her room. Why can't she clean her room? It's because, and then I tell her, I'm like, okay, like she doesn't understand. So the 4.5-year-old understands that cleaning a room is a set of individual tasks that are put together. She recognizes a clean room and she recognizes a dirty room, and she recognizes that her stuffed animals go here, her Legos go here, and the chess set goes here, and her markers go here. Now, the 2.5-year-old can't piece that together. So I can tell the 2.5-year-old, I can ask her, where does the chess set go? And she says, okay, it goes here. And I say, clean up the chess set. And she can do that. Then I can say, okay, where do your markers go? And she knows where the markers go. And I say, clean up the markers, do that. Where do your stuffed animals go? She knows that, clean them up, do that. Right? And then Legos too. So she can do each of the individual tasks, but she can't put the abstract picture together. And this is a faculty that if you play video games, you are worse at abstraction. Because what video games do is they do all the chunking of tasks for us, right? The video game breaks it apart. All it tells you is what's the next objective. Okay, collect 5 rat tails, go turn this in over here, go do this over here. It takes like, how do you beat the game? Like if you play like an RPG, like I play a lot of RPGs, right? The RPG doesn't start with you at the beginning and says, okay, like, so FF7 remake is going to come out soon. It's like, if you're Cloud, it doesn't say like, go kill Sephiroth. It says like, go do this thing and 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 go do this thing. And it breaks it up for you. So the more that we play video games, the more rusty our abstraction and operationalizing part of our brain becomes. Because we're spending like 10 hours a day with tasks that we're not operationalizing because the computer and game does it for us. So we lose that faculty. It's kind of like if you don't speak a language for a long time, you're going to forget the language. Right? And so the solution to operational procrastination is to recognize, first of all, that you're like a 2.5-year-old instead of a 4.5-year-old. And that if you think about like a good example of operational procrastination is finding a job. How do you find a job? You can't find a job. Do I walk out on the street and I see one lying there and I pick it up? Oh, look, I found a job. No, that's dumb. That's not, we don't even have the right word for it, right? Finding a job is not something you do. You don't like walk down the street and you're like, oh, there's a job. Oh, look, I got one. We don't use the right verb. Why do we use the word find to get a job? Like that's not, it's because we take this super abstract task and we assign one crappy word to it, whereas actually finding a job is like a super complicated thing, right? It's making a resume. It's polishing a resume. Do I make a resume? Do I make a CV? What font do I use? What color do I use? How do I make my margins? What if my resume looks bad? Like what if my resume looks empty, right? Then we kind of get into this procrastination. Oh my God, my resume is empty. There's a little bit of avoidance procrastination. People who are reading this are going to think it sucks. Oh my God. Right? So it's making a resume. That's something you can do. Opening up Microsoft Word. That's something you can do. Those are tasks. So the solution to operational procrastination, as many people sort of figured out, is to actually operationalize it for you. So what I'd suggest is you sit down with a piece of paper and you actually write out as many steps as you can to completing the task. So, and if you guys are having trouble with this, what I'd say, so take an abstract task and chunk it up. And if you guys are having trouble with where to start, this is another key thing, right? So like, how do I make a resume? Don't start with the resume. Start at the end. Pro tip. cheat code. So accept a job offer, right? So just think about this. Okay, so we accept a job offer, receive a job offer, interview, apply. So then actually we can even say this. So like follow up, post interview with thank you notes, interview, apply for job. How many do we need to apply for? Interview. What are our chances of interview? Okay, for this, before we interview, we need to dry clean our suit, cut hair, shave. Okay. In order to apply for a job, we have to find jobs to apply for. How are we going to find jobs? Okay, we can use Monster.com or online sites. Use Craigslist. We can ask people we know. Now things are getting tricky. So how do we know? We know which jobs to apply for. Okay. So I'm going to do a video about how to get the job of your dreams, which is essentially operationalizing. You guys get this? So this is what you need to do. And then what this does is like you can do this, right? Can you get a job today? No. But you can dry clean your suit, cut your hair, and shave today. Like that you can do. And then something cool starts to happen. As you start to check these off, how do you think you feel about yourself? It's pretty, you start to feel good, right? Like you're like, oh, I applied for 5 jobs today, got my hair did, got an interview. And the more that you kind of abstract, you operationalize your abstract thing. Hold on. Okay. The more you operationalize your abstract thing, like the easier it becomes and the better you feel about yourself. And then the other really, really cool thing about this is if you're thinking about applying for a job and you apply for a job and you get an interview and you don't get the job, you feel crushed. But if this, so I want you guys, I don't know how to say this. So if you have a bunch of check boxes, okay, that are successes and you don't get one job after one interview, you're less likely to be crushed at it. Whereas if you apply for one job and get one interview and you don't make it part of this abstract large process that involves all of these steps, then all you have is failure. But if you don't get one job in this process, it's like, who the fuck cares? Like you have all these different things that you're doing. Like you're still succeeding at all of them. Okay, no big deal. Like one interview. So like that's why, you know, how many, it's like this is part of the process right here. How many do we need to get an interview? What are our chances of getting an interview? You become way more resistant to despair when you do this process because you start to remove yourself from the equation. You have lots and lots of successes in there, so you don't need to worry about a singular failure, right? And so this is how you move forward. This is how you deal with procrastination. Okay, good. So we're going to do a couple, actually, we're going to have to do meditation. So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions now. So we're going to go ahead and do meditation because then I got to go. Okay. And I'll sort out my technical difficulties for tomorrow. Okay. So let's think about what kind of, you guys want to do something new? Let's do something new. All right. So we're gonna do Om chanting, okay? So I know Om chanting is kind of weird, but we're gonna do it. Okay. So so Om chanting, Om is composed of 3 syllables, A, U, and Okay. So So I'll demonstrate once. So I'm going to sit up straight, take a deep breath. Okay, so I want you guys to do it with me. In one breath. We're going to do 5 breaths, okay? Close your eyes. Notice your anxiety. If you feel silly, so be it. Notice that feeling of silliness. We're going to practice anyway, right? We're going to practice dealing with avoidance procrastination right now. So notice, what is it that you feel? Do you feel silly? Are you afraid that people are going to be mad at you for waking them up? Like, what is that emotion that you're feeling? How would someone, if it's 2 a.m. where you are and you don't want to chant like this, how would someone feel if it was 2 a.m. and they started chanting? Okay, so let's play that little game, and then let's notice those feelings, and then let's go ahead and do it. So sit up straight, 5 rounds. I want you to focus on the vibration in your body, not the sound. Last one. Okay. So go at your own pace, right? So learn to breathe. You guys will get there. That's okay. So thank you guys very much for coming. We very hope y'all are doing well. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. So thank you guys very much. So I think we're taking donations on Ko-fi. So for those of you who have donated, we really appreciate it. And for those of you who like watch stream and stuff, we appreciate that as well. So come back tomorrow. We're trying to keep things free, and we're streaming later today. So I'm streaming in about an hour and a half. So and stay well, stay safe. Take time to meditate. Take time to reflect. take time to do yoga. Start to take care of yourself because that's what you deserve, right? You owe yourself. The care that you give to your loved ones and friends is not care that you give to yourself, and that needs to change today. So start taking care of yourself.